the candidates, and we'll be happy to get you in touch directly with the candidates so they can answer your questions. Sort of a town hall setting today, but the first thing I want to do is allow the candidates time to give themselves an introduction. So I guess we'll just start from my right to left. We'll start with Preston Smith. Preston, please introduce yourself to the listenership of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hi, good morning. My name is Preston Smith. I'm running a grassroots campaign that's based on down-to-earth, common-sense decision-making. This is my first time running for elected office. I am looking to help out and volunteer in Indian Rocks Beach to promote awareness of our situations and diminish apathy. I lived in Indian Rocks Beach since 2016, and I've been married since 2005. And I'm a condo maintenance person is my business, and I'm hoping to unite our city so that we can tell Tallahassee that we want control of our short-term vacation rental and housing authority back.
All righty, Preston. And by the way, let's go ahead and get this out of the way, because I'm sure there will be some comments on social media about this no blood relation between you and I, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
That's a great last name.
Yeah, I agree with you, Preston. All righty, next, Mr. House, please.
Okay, I'm Don House. I'm the oldest one, and I think that brings some wisdom. Also lived in Indian Rocks Beach longer than anybody. Been out there about, I first went there in 1973. And the house has been in the family for 60, 70 years, long time. So anyway, but it's, I've lived there. It's been my residence for 30 years. So, and I live on the beach. So I have maybe a little bit different perspective on some issues than others, but 30 years on the beach.
In radio, we often use euphemism. So instead of saying the oldest candidate, we would say the most seasoned.
Yeah, well, I would say the grayest hair, but maybe Preston and I got a chance.
All righty, Don, thank you. Last but certainly not least, we have joining us Lan Vaughn. Lan, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Lan Vaughn. I moved to Indian Rocks Beach in 2016 with my family. We've thoroughly enjoyed the small beach town feel, community feel, and I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to keep that small town beach charm, work together on enforcing these short-term rentals in family zoned areas, seeing what we can do about beach renourishment, and building the community so we can continue to grow and thrive as a small town beach community.
All righty. Again, thank you so much, Lan. Thank you, Don. And thank you, Preston, again, for taking the time to be here today. It's obviously a very important topic. And again, as a proud resident of the city of Indian Rocks Beach, I'm happy to give my time on the show to give you guys time to connect with the voters out there so that they make an informed selection. So let's start with our questions. First question, I'm going to start with Don, but this is actually for everybody. So we'll hop to Don and then we'll go to Preston and Lan. So during your time living in Indian Rocks Beach, now you said about 30 plus years, what's the significant change you've seen in the city?
Well, in my particular, where I live, there were a lot of motels. And a lot of the little mom and pop motels have gone away.
The beach cottages.
Yeah, well, not the beach cottage. I still have a beach cottage, but we're talking about the little motels, the 4-unit and the smaller mom and pop motels. A lot of that's gone away, and so from a rental standpoint, that those opportunities have gone away, and I think that's what's probably driving a lot of the short-term rentals is some replacement for those rental units that disappeared. But it's gotten a lot. The restaurants have cleaned up a lot. There was some crazy restaurants back in the day, and but it's gotten a lot busier. A lot busier.
Preston, your thoughts on how you've seen Indian Rocks Beach change during your time here?
I suppose the water quality is one of the most important aspects for me as far as looking at the ocean and the Gulf of Mexico and how Clearwater Beach was named after how clear the water is. And now it's we have this red tide, and I'm trying to get a little bit more accountability from the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers. And I suspect that the the pollution is coming from the shore and it's not developing out near the continental shelf. And so as far as a good thing in Indian Rock Space, so the new businesses, like we have a brewery in town and other restaurants, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about our businesses that are getting developed there.
All righty, President Land.
I would venture to say, and one of the main reasons that I did start running is the short-term rentals kind of bleeding into our single-family neighborhoods. As Don stated, we have the beach community, the commercial tourist zone, and these STRs are not playing along the same level playing field as our smaller boutique hotels. And what I'd really like to see is that they are under the same guidelines and ordinances that a lot of our smaller businesses and beach hotels are playing under today.
All righty. And again, if you have a question for any of our candidates for Preston, Don, or Land, 877-943-9673. You can call in. We're live and local. Happy to help any way we can. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm Attorney Patrick Smith. And this show is our Indian Rocks Beach City Commission special. We have 3 candidates for the City Commission seats. The only problem here is there's only 2 seats available. So we've got some candidates here to field your questions, and you have a chance to interact with them live and local and directly on the show. 877-943-9673. And we'll continue on with our next questions. Again, this is for everyone. So we'll start with, which city commissioner do you most closely align ideologically? Which current city commissioner do you most closely align ideologically, and why? And we'll start with Lan on this one.
I would say the city commissioner that I align with most would be Denise Hausberg. She does believe in restricting the short-term rentals. We all agree that beach renourishment is something we need to look at, keeping our residents' rights intact as we, go to the federal government and have them deal with that.
Don.
I would probably say Joe McCall. He had he was more involved with the homeowners association, and he has more of a feel for a lot of the regular people in town.
So you're talking more about some of your background, maybe in the housing and zoning in your previous history?
Well, yeah, I was on the planning and zoning in Indian Rocks Beach, and I own 30-something residences in Pasco County. So I have been a lot of, you're always dealing with the government when you're doing that stuff, and I think that I think that's one of the things that is being overlooked in Indian Rocks Beach is qualifications along those lines.
All right, Preston, your thoughts on which city commissioner with which you most similarly are ideologically aligned, and why?
I was going to say Joe McCall too. I like how he is freedom oriented as far as keeping constitutional rights intact, and yeah, I think that's it.
All right, so we're going to get into some candidate specific questions. Now, Don, we're going to start with you. There's a quote from your website. It says, "We have several issues that have become very divisive to our community: parking, beach renourishment, and short-term rentals, to name a few. I truly believe that these differences have been exacerbated by the control that Action 2000, A2K, has exerted over our city commission and city management." First of all, those are your words from your website, correct?
Yeah.
Specifically, what acts have exacerbated these issues? And if elected, what is your plan to bring these different sides together?
Well, I think that the control that A2K and its members have exerted over the city filters down to a lack of any opposing idea from whether it's on the budget, our appointment when we had a chance to appoint somebody to the Suncoast Fire Board, and the city puts out something, their little postcard, and everything says "working together." and they are working together very well because they don't bring in any opposing idea that might even change anything. So when we go to like the parking ordinances, the last one that we worked on, yeah, they worked on it for 18 months and then they totally screwed it up on the beach side. And because there wasn't anybody on the beach side that was really standing up, and when we would talk about it, we were just totally ignored. So that one is, and I think that probably in retrospect, they probably would rather revisit that.
All righty, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of the show today. If you have a question for any of the Indian Rocks Beach City Commission candidates, you can call in now. Joining us in studio, Preston Smith, Don House, and Lan Vaughn, all here to field your questions. 877-943-9673. All right, let's go to our first caller of the day from our hometown of Indian Rocks Beach. Gentlemen, we've got Roberta on the line. Roberta, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Hey, Roberta, you there? Roberta, did you walk away from the phone, Roberta? All right, Roberta, we can hear you. All right, Roberta, call back if you come back to the phone. That was weird. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. We're live. We're local. We're happy to help any way that we can this morning. And particularly if you want to talk to your city commission candidates for the city of Indian Rocks Beach, 877-943-9673. And yes, you can email your question to patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, next. Let's turn it to a question for everyone. And Preston, this time we're going to start with you. What makes you a superior candidate to your opponents?
I am looking to get more people involved from our city. We haven't had an election in Indian Rocks Beach in 4 years, even though every year 2 positions come up for election on the board. And at first I thought this was because people didn't realize when to qualify to be on the ballot. You just have 1 short week in December. But now I've understood a little bit more, and that I think people are afraid to run against the pre-approved chosen candidate because they do go after your reputation. And I have heard some pretty wild stories about myself, but I'm friendly and approachable and a reasonable person. I'm unbiased. I don't own any vacation rentals, and I think I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just bringing it.
Why is being a lawyer a bad thing?
I'm afraid that most of our representation in Tallahassee are all lawyers, like over 90% of them.
And that'll wrap up Preston's time on the show. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don, your answer.
Well, I think it's obvious. I've been there the longest. I've seen more of the change and how it's all affected stuff. And I think that just having the value of experience there, and the fact that like I was on the planning and zoning board when it went through the evaluation appraisal report, and you go through the city code line by line,
right?
And it took about 2 weeks to do it. I mean, it was a lot of stuff, and you learn a lot more about it than you ever thought you needed to know. But and then so that experience, and then just 71 years old, they've got a lot of life experience also.
Lan, your answer quickly, and we're going to turn to some calls.
Well, I would venture to say that I have a history of servant leadership. I am always open to new ideas. I've personally reached out to people on the west side of Boulevard, talked to them, talked to our neighbors. I don't profess to be the smartest person, but I want to learn everybody's position and seek common ground and see what we can do about building yet keeping our beach town charm and sense of community.
So, okay. All right. Great answers from all you gentlemen. Let's go to our next caller. Let's go to Steve in Indian Rocks Beach. Steve, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Hey, Steve, turn your radio down a skosh, all right? Steve, can you hear me okay?
Hello.
Hey, Steve, can you hear us?
Hello. This is Steve.
Hey, Steve, go ahead with your question.
Hello. Hello.
All righty. We're going to move on from Steve. So 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. You can call in now, live and local. We'll get you and your question right on the air. 877-943-9673. All righty, let's go back to Roberta in Indian Rocks Beach. Roberta, take two. Roberta, how are you today?
Good morning. Well, thank you.
How can we help Roberta?
Well, with regard to the short-term rental question, actually, from what I'm reading on social media here, there seems to be some misinformation that some candidates are for greater restrictions and more accountability and other candidates are not. What I'm reading is that's really not true. In talking with all the candidates directly, I've heard every one of the gentlemen sitting there say that, of course, we need to fix these problems. So I think the question is how. I'm curious to hear how the candidates believe is the best solution for fixing our problems without decimating some of the freedoms in our community.
All righty, so Roberta, is there a particular candidate you want to begin with?
I'd love to hear everyone's answer.
Okay,
Maybe, yeah.
maybe who? You were going to say a name.
Preston.
All right, Preston, you're up first per Roberta. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for the question. I have been saying all along that I am in favor of enforcing the rules that we have already in the books. We have a thick book of ordinances for our city, and I'm afraid some of the rules are already being ignored. This Indian Rocks Beach is getting ready to pass 23 pages of restrictions for these short-term vacation rentals, and I'm afraid that's going to spread our enforcement a little bit too thin. Indian Rocks Beach did just hire a gentleman that is only enforcing the code, which is a good step forward, but I think noise complaints are one of the top issues for these vacation rentals. But the other issue is that we just have a lot more strangers in our city, and so that's been one of the complaints that our long-term residents are having. They rather keep the small town community atmosphere, and so we can make as many restrictions as we want, but I'm afraid Tallahassee is overriding our rules at this point. So it is a difficult question.
All righty, so Don, tell Roberta how you're going to solve the short-term rental problem for Indian Rocks Beach.
Well, you're going to treat the short-term rentals and the permanent residents and the long-time renters the same. Everybody is going to be treated the same. It's the only way we're going to be able to sustain and stay out of court. Because if when they had rules, the original proposal was that the short-term rental could not use their pools after 10 p.m. Had nothing to do with anything except trying to be vindictive against the short-term rentals. I understand the people that are in the residential areas with their outrage at what happened in 2011. It's totally understandable.
And before we go to Land for his response, you recently in a Facebook post made a distinction between full-time citizens and part-time citizens, I believe was your phrase.
Yes.
How do you define part-time citizen?
Anybody that is not a full-time, anybody that rents less than 6 months.
So if I'm there a weekend, I'm considered a part-time citizen
You're
of Indian Rocks
a
Beach.
part-time resident, yes.
Part-time resident for
Right.
renting a condo for a weekend.
Yes.
That's your definition.
Right.
Okay, just to be clear.
You're just part-time there all the time. Yeah,
All
you
right,
know,
all right, great. So, Land, your response to Roberta, how are we going to fix the STR problem?
Well, Roberta, again, seek first to understand. So I've literally met with a lot of the citizens. I've talked to a lot of our boutique hotels and even sat down with Greg Mims, our city manager. He's got a outside source that we're going to start using as the city to take calls and start enforcing some of the new ordinances we're talking about. We do need to pull out these ordinances and make them very clear so they're all in one book for everybody to read. I think everybody here does agree that short-term rentals do need to be looked at and enforced and taken care of. I think the challenge that we have here is how we're each going to do it.
Okay. And
that was my.
Roberta, did that answer your question?
Well, not really. I mean, I guess the question is how, because I've seen differing opinion about how do we do this in a way that's fair to everyone rather than just trying to be super aggressive with one group and unequal enforcement for everyone else.
Yeah, Roberta, and to sort of play moderator between you and the candidates, I think what they're all saying uniformly is that there needs to be some sort of enforcement. And I think where Roberta's being frustrated is they're not giving a specific, we are going to enforce this, and that's how we're going to address the problem. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that that's the issue. And I think if you've attended this, have you attended the city commission meetings and the workshops?
Yeah.
Okay. So during one of those meetings, the comment was made, hey, we're hoping to pass a law that makes everyone a little bit unhappy. In other words, they know they're not going to pass a law that's going to make everyone ecstatic. Like, that's not an achievable goal in politics. It's a zero-sum game. So I think that in a way, that's what they're sorting to wait to see. The candidates here are sort of limited because they don't know what ordinance is coming down the pike. So they don't know what law they'll have to use for enforcement. So it's not entirely on them for being kind of vague in their answers. It's more the fact that this is the hand they're currently dealt with, the law and the ordinance in limbo.
Well, I think that the one thing that we have right now is a noise ordinance, and we just need to grab that thing and just enforce that as hard as we can. And that's going to affect everybody in the town. So your quality of life, if you've got a person that parties every weekend next door to you, it doesn't matter if they're a part-time resident or full-time resident, if they're making noise every weekend.
Great point. And Don, to that point, I want to go back to land briefly, because land, you've sort of been the short-term rental regulation candidate. I don't think you would run from that designation, correct?
I would not run
Okay.
from that. No.
So I guess here's my question to you. So let's say we had a house, and let's say it's Don's house. Don, I'm going to use you a hypothetical. Is that okay?
Party guy.
Okay.
Party guy.
I don't know, but let's say Don is throwing wild, and he's not. I'm just using this as a hypothetical. So Don's throwing wild parties every weekend. They're getting loud. They're getting raucous. They're on Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, during the weekdays when people have work weeks to think about. Is the fact that he's not an STR and he's a long-term resident of Indian Rocks Beach somehow exculpatory for that behavior?
I don't believe so. I think Don himself said that we need to treat everybody equally and fairly.
So to that point,
And-
isn't this really a behavioral problem and not so much a short-term rental problem? It's not the fact that it's short-term renters so much, although the instances may occur greater with short-term renters than with long-term residents, but isn't the real heart of the issue that needs to be addressed in the ordinance the behavior that's being exhibited?
I would agree. And I think that regulation also helps with, and enforcement also helps with the behavioral as well. What we run into in talking with our citizens that live in a single family zoned area is that we're not talking about a neighbor like Don that lives there 52 weeks out of the year. We're talking about a foreign investment company, a corporation, or an investor that doesn't live in our community. They have this house, and we have a constant rotating door of strangers, and strangers are good and strangers are bad, but it's a constant rotating door, and our citizens have to deal with the same noise issues again and again and again. Regarding the pool being closed, our hotels and motels on our commercial zoned areas, they close their pool at 10 o'clock. Guess what? There aren't any noise problems. What this does is it takes noise, which is a very relative term, and it says, hey, the outside pools on these people who have chosen to become STRs and short-term rentals and commercial businesses in single-family residence, it shuts down their pool. It allows quiet. And if they do get called, I don't think we're going to have people, monitoring this. But if the police get called, they can say, your pool is supposed to be closed.
So let me ask you this question, Lane, as a follow-up. So you have two homes side by side. One's STR, one's Don's house, been there 30 plus years.
Mhm.
One has to shut down the pool at 10 o'clock, the STR. Don, as a private long-term resident, does not, or is he under the same regulation?
Well, they've made a conscious decision. They have posted a short-term rental license on their front door. In my opinion, they're not a resident. They are a company that is operating in a single family zoned area.
Do you agree with Don's definition of a part-time citizen, someone who's been here a couple of days being designated a part-time citizen?
No, I do not.
Preston, we haven't talked to you in a minute. So any thoughts on this?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so disappointed that we have residential zoned areas and commercial zoned areas, but yet when you look at the usage, it defeats the purpose, because we have commercial operating businesses in people's homes. If it's operating a hotel like vacation rental or during the pandemic, a lot of people were invited to run their businesses out of their homes during the lockdowns. And so as far as the swimming pool after 10 o'clock, I would be in favor of telling these the vacationers who are trying to get maximum party time out of their dollar for the rental that they'll have to go inside after 10 o'clock. And but for one of our long-term residents who's respectful of the community and the neighbors, they should still be allowed to be outside enjoying and the property rights and free to do what they want.
So, Roberta, to follow up on your question, I think what we've gained from this interaction is Preston saying more important enforcement regarding the zoning ordinances. And I think what Don and Lan are saying is more enforcement regarding the noise. So I think when you look at those two combinations, their position is currently better enforcement of zoning ordinances and better enforcement of noise ordinances will lead to a potential solution in the short-term rental property. How does that satisfy Roberta?
I completely agree. And the zoning potentially is what could have been used to begin with. Or, again, if our commission had not made the mistake back in 2011, my concern still becomes enforcement. So since we've been highlighting the pool issue as the issue, my concern as a resident, a full-time, year-round resident of Indian Rocks Beach, is that if we create too many of these tiny little rules, it's going to cause a situation where people are going to be peering over each other's fences. Are they in the pool? Are they in the pool? Do they live here or are they renters? It's going to be really creepy, and that is not who we are as a community.
Well,
that is not the small beach feel that we have.
Well, Roberta, we really appreciate you calling in, and thank you so much for your question and your follow-up.
Thank you.
Have a great day. All righty, gentlemen, quickly, rapid round. Your thoughts, 15, 20 seconds. Senate Bill 714. Preston, let's start with you.
I think it's terrible that our district representative is completely going against the vast majority of our long-term residents who want further restrictions and to discourage the investment of these corporations into opening up short-term vacation rentals. And Bill 714, it restricts the registration fee that we can charge them for the online database. And then it also gives us only 15 days to either approve or deny or inspect the property before they're given the go-ahead for approval. They get automatic approval. So I would say that this is definitely generated by the online vacation rental industry telling our representatives what to do.
So you're opposed?
Totally opposed to it.
Totally opposed. Don, Senate Bill 714.
Well, the fee seems a little low for any type of I pay $50 for just a rental license on a full-time house of a year-round rentals. In Pasco, I pay $800 something. I don't know how much I pay. Anyway, but the main thing about this one, and I think it's kind of a backlash. I brought it up at the last hearing on the STR ordinances, was that how are you going to get if all of a sudden we have to pull 200 or 300 short-term rental permits? They have to be approved. My suggestion was approve it pending your inspections, but you're able to operate until you finish your inspections. And in case there's a problem, you have 30 days to clear it up. I think this is kind of a backlash, an extreme backlash, as just you automatically get in 15 days, which you should not get.
Lan, quickly, your thoughts on Senate Bill 714.
I'm completely opposed. I feel like Nick abandoned our voters in light of a political agenda.
Mhm.
And I have written letters to him. I've written letters to the committee. I've seen his response to our citizens after they have written letters. And it is a clear distinction that he is interested in the tax base, and he is interested in protecting these short-term rentals, and has abandoned our voters.
What would you say to Senator DeSegli if you could get a message to him?
Well, I've said it. I've said it in a letter to him. I've said that he needs to rethink this. We are seeing a repeat of Florida Statute 509 in 2011, allowing our zoning that Preston brought up to be muddled. Single family does not exist in Indian Rocks Beach.
All righty. Well, let's go to the man himself. Joining us now on the phone, our state senator from District 18, Senator Nick DeSegli. Nick, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Good morning, everybody.
So, Nick, you've heard their thoughts on Senate Bill 714. Do you care to respond?
Absolutely. Look, so number one, I want to make it clear that this is the beginning of a conversation. That's why we have a committee process. The bill is referenced to 3 committees. The language I took was from short-term rental bill the year previous, so 2022. Senator Burgess had run that bill through a couple of committees in the Senate. So I want to lay out my goal here. Number one, I'm fully understand the issue, fully understand the frustration. I will say, back in 2011 is when short-term vacation rentals were preempted by the state. I was not in the legislature at that point, and so here we go. In the last 12 years, we've had an industry that's sparked up. Folks are exercising their property rights to purchase a property, turn that into vacation rentals. I will tell you that what I'm proposing here is something that is realistic to begin moving through the process. If this bill was written where it gave local governments full authority to manage vacation rentals, through the zoning process, I can tell you right now that bill would not move. And so I want to find a solution to give local governments a little bit more teeth to have the ability to manage the issue, to deal with the bad actors. And I want to bring up really quick the zoning because I think it's important. This is something that I had a conversation with the League of Cities about just this past week in Tallahassee. And that's, we have a Burt Harris Act in the state of Florida. And so if the local government had the authority to essentially eliminate vacation rentals, that local government, that jurisdiction would be then going essentially down a litigious route, lawsuits, and that property owner would be protected by the Burt Harris Act. And in many jurisdictions, that the number of potential liability would be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And so
Nick,
my goal here.
Nick, let me interrupt you quickly, okay? I just want to go back to something you said. You said a bill which would sort of just give the cities, the local municipalities, sort of total control to do whatever they please. You said that doesn't move. Now, for those of us who aren't students of politics like you and I, when you say it doesn't move, do you mean that doesn't get out of committee, doesn't get through the Senate, the House? Does the governor veto it? Like, what do you mean by it doesn't move? How far do you think? Is it dead out of the gate?
Yes. And here's why. When I talk to my colleagues who are, representing people in Central Florida, in say, parts of Pasco County, folks that are in communities that aren't necessarily on the coastline, or they could be representing communities that had ordinances prior to 2011. So the vacation rental issue is not a big deal to them. The vacation rental issue to them is strictly a property rights issue. And I think this has been the challenge every time we see legislation that gives or looks to give local governments more authority when it comes to vacation rentals. Those bills have never moved. And so, this product right now has, conversations with the League of Cities, which by the way, the League of Cities right now, they're neutral on the language we have. We have the hotel and lodging industry. They're currently neutral. And then of course there's the platforms. And so right now we have a starting point that has the ability to move through the process. And I think when we talk about local governments, this bill is going to allow them to set up a registration program. It's going to allow them to remove that registration if there are 2 or more violations of local ordinances. Currently, they don't have the authority to do that. I think obviously the challenge there is how we kind of lay out that interaction with local governments and the division. And when I say the division, it's Department of Business and Professional Regulations, who, they've been regulating vacation rentals since 2011. My initial conversations with staff earlier this year was, how can we, lay out the regulatory framework for local governments to have more control? And the challenge with that is the division, is the fact that under current Florida law, the Department of Business and Professional Regulations regulate vacation rentals there's just simply not an appetite to remove that. So
all right. So
I'm trying
so
to
Nick,
my
I know you're busy, and I want to try to make best use of your time. Do you have a moment to stick around and let the candidates kind of respond to some of what you said?
Sure.
Okay, Lan, you're up first, please.
Nick, one of the questions that I would probably ask is is that we're talking about the DBPR, which I am familiar with, regulating these. Since 2011, I haven't seen the DBPR regulate anything in Indian Rocks Beach as far as enforcement or anything like that. We currently have our licensing in Indian Rocks Beach with 300, and I think today it's probably 341 BTR licenses for short-term rentals. Yet when we have Airbnb DNA run a data check on us, we have over 1,900 short-term rentals in Indian Rocks Beach, and we're at a tipping
Lan, let me
point.
interrupt you. For those of you not familiar, BTR, business tax receipt. Okay,
Business tax
Yeah,
receipt. Sorry.
Yeah. And Nick, do you have
Um,
any response to what Lan was saying there regarding the enforcement?
Yeah, so there's two parts here I want to touch on. Number one, when it comes to enforcement, that's a local responsibility. Typically, it's noise, parking, and trash. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation in Indian Rocks Beach to put a little bit more teeth in those three areas. And I'll tell you, and I'm glad he brought this up. There is a huge disparity between what we're seeing on the platforms and what we're seeing as a registered vacation rental. That is a big problem for me. I want to make sure we have full transparency when it comes to every single property that's operating as a vacation rental should have its own registration license number, should have its own DBPR number. I'm not a fan of where you can go on DBPR, register, one license number, then have the ability to have 75 properties underneath that one license number. That just doesn't work for me because of that huge disparity.
All right. So what I hear you saying is Senate Bill 714 has as a goal to bridge the gap between this disparity. Is that correct, Senator?
Yeah, look, the bill it's not in the bill currently, but again, if anybody knows how I've operated in my 5 years in the legislature, I'm always open to amendments. I am always open to bringing the stakeholders, into the room to improve the bill. That's why I had a conversation with the League of Cities. They sent me a email with some, amended language ideas going into next week, which I'm very open to. Occupancy is an issue that I want to address. So, this is not, me trying to ram anything down anybody's throat. This is the start of a conversation.
You're starting a dialogue.
I'm open. Yeah, I'm open to ideas. I'm open to having this conversation.
All right. Well, to continue the dialogue, Don, your thoughts for Senator DeSegli?
Well, I have to compliment him for at least starting the dialogue. I think that's what the real scary thing to me is when the city like ours was going gaga, like running up and down the street with the hair on fire, as the STRs just going crazy, and then coming out with ordinances that were totally unenforceable, and could definitely, I feel, get this city in a really bad situation. Maybe the course that Nick's going down is to try and bring some sanity into what can be enforced and what should be enforced, and then it will withstand legal court challenges.
All righty. And lastly, but not least, Preston, anything for Senator DeSegli?
I'm very disappointed with this one-size-fits-all legislation for the entire state of Florida, and you're taking our city's right to govern ourselves away from us, and we're going to have to fight you for our right to govern ourselves in our city. The one-size-fits-all is not optimal for us. Senator
DeSegli, your response.
Well, look, we don't legislate, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We have to legislate statewide. There's a statewide interest in making sure that, that this issue is dealt with. Now, look, I had an option, obviously, of not doing anything. I'm trying to thread the needle here. I'm trying to give, this issue some legislative relief. And look, my door is open. I'm always open to suggestions. But you can't legislate jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So I'm giving myself here a good faith effort, and hopefully we can get something across the finish line.
Well, and Senator DeSegli, thank you for taking the time to appear on the show today. We know you're extremely busy, and don't be a stranger to the show. Let's have you back again on soon, okay?
Love it. Thanks a lot.
All righty, thanks. Thank you, Senator. All righty, this is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. That was Senator Nick DeSegli, our senator for District 18, 877-943-9673. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, and I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. By the way, for those of you who want to reach me at the law office during the week, 877-754-6764. If I don't give out that office line at least once during the show, I will get lots of angry emails. So that number again is 877-754-6764 to reach me through at the law office throughout the week. But to talk to us today on our Indian Rocks Beach City Commission special with our City Commission candidates, 877-943-9673. We have an email question that I want to go to. It's talking about the current proposed ordinance, and it wants to know, ask the candidates to speak on their current ordinance being proposed, in particular related to maximum occupancy limits. And what is your position on that? Preston, let's start with you this time.
I am in favor of the occupancy limit on the latest restrictions we're getting ready to pass at the next meeting or a couple meetings. And it's of 2 per bedroom and then another 2 people in the living area.
With a maximum of 12.
12. I am in favor of, limiting that.
Don.
I think that it's reasonable. I think there has to be some consideration for grandfathering in houses that were there. We have some old houses that are going to face some challenges along these occupancy limits, and some new ones that were built totally legally, totally permitted. And I mean, we're not talking about illegal closures or anything like that. And there has to be some grandfathering in and looking at what's going on there.
Land maximum occupancy limits. Your thoughts?
I would agree with the current ordinance on maximum occupancy limits and managing it. I think Don brought up a very good point about looking at the square footage as well. Yeah, I believe in one of his communications. And again, simply taking a rational look at it, making sure that it fits the needs of our community.
Land, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you just soften on that point? Because it sounded like you weren't married to the 12 cap. If
I'm married to the 12 cap. However, I think that we still need to do our due diligence and look at the square footage.
So would you be open to a conversation regarding raising the 12 for grandfathered in homes that are large enough to meet the regulations requirement of 2 per bedroom and 2 in a common area?
I think that, well, it was 1 to a common area from what I understood. And I thought it was 10, not 12. Am I incorrect in that?
I think it's 12 and going to be rolled back to 10.
It's going to be rolled back to 10 after a year to allow the accommodation. We are in uncharted territory. We need to look into it. I'm still for maximum occupancy limits.
Okay.
But I do believe in the commercial tourist district, we do have those bungalows. And
you're talking west side of Gulf.
The west side of Gulf, not our single family neighborhoods at all.
877-943-9673. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, and I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. This is our Indian Rocks Beach City Commission special with our City Commission candidates. Next, we're going to go to a new record holder for being on hold for the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. This is the most patient Steve in Indian Rocks Beach. And Steve, congratulations for being on hold almost half an hour and not hanging up. So Steve, please, your question.
My question is, my wife and I spend a lot of time on Indian Rocks Beach doing working out, open water swim, bicycling. The biggest change I've seen and she's seen since the short-term rental thing is the jaywalkers. There's jaywalkers everywhere.
The scofflaws.
My question is the city liable for a shortage of crosswalks when this tragedy happens?
All righty, Steve, I'm going to let you go so our candidates can give quick answers, and then I got to wrap up the show. But thank you again for being so patient, and congratulations on the new record holder.
Thanks.
All righty, Steve. All righty. Don, let's start with you on this one. What do you say to the jaywalking plague of Indian Rocks Beach?
I'll see people that will not go 10 extra feet to do our legally lighted crosswalks. And I always look at them and I think, well, they're just biodegradable speed bumps or something. I mean, it's just how in the world good thing about Gulf Boulevard, it moves pretty slow.
The opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of the Attorney Patrick
Or
Smith.
anybody saying.
That's right. All righty, Preston.
The crosswalks that we have are very nice with the flashing lights, and I think if the people should walk down to those. I really like how Indian Rocks Beach is considered the safest beach, and yeah, we need to keep it safe in there.
And Lan, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I know that we have studies in our history where we actually looked at where we were placing the crosswalks. We've made concerted efforts as a city to put these in where people can use them. Again, people are making their choices when they cross the street. And to Don's point, Gulf Boulevard has kind of slowed down significantly. I do know that Cookie, our mayor, is looking at it. We do have a goal of 0 fatalities on Gulf Boulevard.
So quickly, rapid question round. Current grade of how well the current commission is handling the STR problem in an A to F scale. Preston?
I give them a B+.
B+. Don?
I think they've been reading our website, so I'd have to give them a A-.
A-. Lan?
I'll give them an A. We just need to continue and follow through on what we've talked about.
All righty, guys. You've heard them here. The candidates for City Commission in Indian Rocks Beach, well, 3 of the 4 anyway. And we are so thankful that Preston Smith and Lan Vaughn and Don House all took the time to be part of the show today. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. For those of you who want to catch up with me, next Saturday, directly after the show, I will be part of the Solo Parent Conference at the Indian Rocks Baptist Church. That's 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. next Saturday. For more information, you can reach out to the law office or you can reserve your spot at shepherdsvillage.com. And don't forget, in a couple of weeks, we'll be doing our Model Senate special live from Stetson University. So we look forward to that every year. But again, if you want to reach out to me during the week at the law office, 877-754-6764. That office line, 877-754-6764. Again, Preston, Don, Lan, thank you so much for being here today, gentlemen. We really appreciate it.
Had a good time.
All right, thanks, Patrick.
Good luck on Tuesday. Don't forget to vote March 14th.
Early and often.
The preceding was sponsored by the Law Offices